Mega Man Legends is a bit of a black sheep in regards to the other Mega Man games. It takes Mega Man out of the side scrolling action where he would fight Dr. Wily and the Robot Masters and puts him into a 3D environment with a linear story and a bit of a sandbox style gameplay. It was released on the PlayStation in December of 1997, the same year the DualShock controller was, but does not make use of the DualShock at that point. Considering how late in the year it was released, Capcom probably was averse to delaying the game, even if it would have been advantageous to do so, something Capcom is known for at this time. It was then ported to the Nintendo 64, Windows, and the PlayStation Portable. It is classified as an action RPG, action adventure, and third person shooter. It sold around 323,000 copies on the PlayStation and another 128,000 copies on the N64, with a bit of rounding on my part. It sold well enough for 1997 standards and would get a sequel and one spin off. There's more to the whole Mega Man Legends history, but I'll cover that when I get to playing Mega Man Legends 2. When you start the game, they made a bit of an odd choice in the world building. It has a text crawl explaining that most of the world is covered in water and that the people live on the few islands that dot the surface. The people get around via airships and rely on people called diggers to support their civilizations. Then there is the legend of the Motherlode, a treasure so vast that the civilization would not have to fear running out of energy. It almost sounds like One Piece to some degree, even if it was released in the same year. The strange part about all this is that the text crawl is only shown when you start the game up, not when you start a new game or if you leave it on the title screen long enough. So if you press start to skip this part, you can miss some lore on what is going on. The game starts out in a tower out in the middle of the ocean, with Mega Man grabbing a refractor crystal, resulting in a Indiana Jones-esque moment where he sets off a trap. You then gain control of Mega Man, and the controls are a bit unwieldy. The D-pad controls the forward, backwards, and side-to-side movement. To rotate Mega Man, you use the L1 and R1 shoulder buttons, which also rotates the camera around him. As for weapons, you get Mega Man's standard Buster Gun on his left hand, and a little bit over an hour in, you get a special weapon equipped on his right. The special weapons are the equivalent of taking the Robot Master's attacks in Legends. In terms of aiming the weapons, it is a bit of a mixed bag. You more or less have to rely on the auto aim to do its thing. You can lock on to targets with the R2 button, but you cannot change targets. So whatever it wants to shoot, that is what you're going to shoot. In terms of animation style, it's a product of its time. It has 3D models with 2D faces, and their hands are more like blocks. I will say it does have a bit of a contrast between the surface and the ruins under the island that the game takes place on and in. One thing I want to point out are the chests located throughout the game. They stand out in stark contrast to the ancient but technologically advanced ruins and the contemporary city of the island. It has a big keyhole and looks more at home in a high fantasy setting. As you go through the tower that acts as a tutorial, Roll talks, letting him know of potential dangers and guides him through the tower. Roll only does this at key moments and does not come off as annoying. Well, at least in the frequency of her dialogue.
Mega Man, I'm showing a large blip in front of you. It's probably a Reaver bot.
To avoid a fight with a Reaver, Mega Man jumps off the tower onto the deck of the Flutter. You finally get to see this version's Roll, a 14-year-old genius mechanic, her grandfather Gramps, and Data, the robot monkey who saves your game, and gives unhelpful tips if you get lost. The Flutter has some engine problems, and the party crash lands on Cadillac's Island. This island is a bit mysterious, with a rumor of a curse and treasure hidden in the ruins that run under the island. Mega Man goes off to help, and 5 seconds later, a police car drives past, and you have to go back to join the conversation. Gramps goes with the police to fill out some immigration papers, and Mega Man goes off to the shopping area to look for parts for the Flutter. Here is where the angry video game nerds showed Mega Man wanting to look at the dirty magazines, but is too afraid of being caught. There are only a few shops and only two are of note, one with actual functionality. A bakery that you can kick a can behind and you get 1000 zenny, but there are consequences that the game does not tell you about if you do that. Then there is the junk shop, where you spend most of the zenny you earn. This is my one point of contention I have with the game. The amount of zenny you earn from just going through the paces is not nearly enough to buy what you need from the junk shop and to upgrade the special weapons. It requires you to do some grinding to get the zenny, and it takes a while to earn it. The junk shop lady then has you go to the local ruins to look for her husband. Something I failed to mention before is the HUD. It is minimal with a health bar that is reminiscent of the health bar from the side-scroller games, but has a circle that lights up when Reavers are nearby. Reaver bots inhabit the ruins and will attack anyone that gets near. Honestly, they are mostly harmless, except for a few later in the game. When I was a kid, the ruins kind of scared me. Not the first set of ruins you get to explore, but later in the game, because you go deeper and deeper, getting further from the safety of the surface, with the ominous lack of music giving them an air of foreboding. With blind corners and the red light below Mega Man's health meter, and the sound of the alarm going off letting you know that a Reaver bot is nearby. After spelunking in Minecraft, Mega Man Legends is a walk in the park. Rescuing the shop owner gets Mega Man a van that allows him to equip special weapons, upgrade and develop them, as well as develop new buster parts. The special weapons range in usefulness, with most not even being worth the time and zenny, outside of the drill arm, vacuum arm, and the shining laser. You can get by with just the buster. After you get the van, Mega Man goes to check on Gramps, and he runs into Tron Bonne, one of the main antagonists in the game. It's not much of a spoiler. They play a cutscene with her and the rest of the family if you let it sit on the start menu. On the way back, she's chased by a dog named Paprika, who you can kick in the Japanese version. You can also kick cats and shoot birds as well, and has been removed in the US version. Tron develops a crush for Mega Man after saving her from the dog, leading to conflicting feelings with each encounter that she has with our titular hero Mega Man. After you get back, you talk to Roll and the pirates attack, and you have to make your way back to City Hall. Along the way, you encounter some serve bots and some armor, and you fight Tron as well. You have to be careful about where you stand because her attacks can destroy the buildings in the downtown area. The reason for avoiding that is Mega Man has to pay for them to be rebuilt via donating the money. When you get to City Hall, you have to defend the building from wrecker bots while trying to balance the defense of all the other buildings. Again, buildings can be destroyed and Mega Man foots the bill. Some of the issues with the auto-targeting become clear at this point, due to the carry units that drop the wrecking bots swarming Mega Man, and the targeting can't decide which one to target. On top of that, you can sort of aim with the R2 button, but the auto-aim kicks in, causing you to miss the target as a result. The other part that irritated me only happens at this point, but the news anchor keeps interrupting you. While she interrupts you, the game is still going on. So the wrecking bots are destroying buildings, while the game forces you to do nothing while it happens. You can shoot the news ship, but that has consequences. You then fight Bomb Bon. Yep, and that is his name. It's the only time you fight him directly, and as a reward for saving City Hall, you get a Class B Digger's license. It's kind of pointless because there's only one set of ruins that has anything new to offer, On top of that, you'll actually get the Class A license like 15 minutes later. So after rescuing City Hall, you have to rescue the police because they want to go arrest the pirates, with both Mega Man and Roll coming to the logical conclusion that they're going to have a hard time fighting them. But if you go anywhere other than north, a policeman will stop you and ask you for help. The last Bond, Teasel, is introduced in a cutscene where he finds out Chon and Bomb failed to get the keys to the subgates. So he decides to dig up the gate with a mech called the Marwolf. Between you and the Marwolf is several tanks, but they're easily beaten because they're easily flanked. And I've already said this before, but most of the enemies in the game are a breeze to beat. The only real issue is if there are multiple enemies close to each other, but other than that, the game offers very little challenge. Marwolf is easy to beat. All you have to do is destroy the support tanks, jump on the back, and drop mines when the hatch opens. It melts like butter. After beating Teasel, Mega Man lets him get away, and then goes back to City Hall, where you get a Class A digger's license. Like I said, 10-15 minutes after you just got the B license. The ruins are important to explore. Like I mentioned before, there's a stark difference between the ruins and the surface of the island. Outside, there's plenty of green with blue skies and the few trees that can be rendered. In the city, the buildings are bright, well, except for the Old Town section of the city. It is dark and gray. I guess they were going for a rundown appearance. The ruins are a tint of brown and have some kind of circuit pattern with an occasional chunk missing showing exposed metal underneath. The ceiling is black in an attempt to make them feel deeper or taller than what they are, and there is no music, just ambient noise. The subgates and the main gate are a different story. They each have their own unique appearance and music. Now there are nooks and crannies and chests in the ruins you get items from. Some are used to build special weapons, make a new buster part, and there is a bit of a collectathon in the game. As a result, you're encouraged to explore everywhere in the game, including the surface. You want to check out every cardboard box, trash can, which you can kick if you want to know if there's something in it, and as the game progresses, items will spawn out in areas that you've been before. The next goal Mega Man has is to explore the subgates. They are kind of like dungeons, and each one holds a key to progressing in the story and getting unique equipment. The jump springs are made from an item in the first gate, and they make it so Mega Man can jump higher as an example of unique equipment. It allows you to go back to places you could not jump to earlier, and thus encouraging you to revisit previous areas. You can find a safety helmet that Roll turned into a Mega Man's iconic helmet, and thankfully so, because Mega Man without a helmet is just weird, in an area that you've previously been to, as another example of encouraging you to explore the game. For the sake of brevity, I'm going to speed this up a bit. As you can tell, the Bonds are the reoccurring protagonists in the game, with them ambushing Mega Man whenever a subgate is involved. The gates, like I said, are like dungeons in the Legend of Zelda series. Just more disappointing on how short they are. They have no puzzle elements to them, and as a result, they are extremely easy. There are two Reavers of note I want to mention. These invisible Reavers, and I will give credit where credit is due, they are invisible and not some blur that is hard to miss. The others are these fish Reavers, and the second biggest threat in the game due to how much damage they can dish out in a narrow hallway, and with several of them coming after you at once. After going to all three subgates and getting the flutter to fly again, the main gate is open. Outside of the main gate are several cats, and you can take one with you back to the flutter. Best Mega Man game ever. Back to the main gate. Mega Man then has to collect 3 more keys from the sub-city, with 3 entrances opening up in the city. After finding the dull drill down in the main gate as well, let's go over the sub-quest or side quest, whatever you want to use. that you can complete as you go throughout the game. The drill is just necessary to finish all of them up. There's too many to go over, but there are two of note. Jim, the leader of a small gang of boys, and the curator of the museum, who you can be a dick to when you meet her and face zero consequences for doing so by telling her she has no talent multiple times. With these subquests, you can get rewards for them, and that's actually pretty nice that they reward you for taking the time to complete these quests. They usually are components to a special weapon, or you can forge a buster part, or it is just a buster part. But the museum is sort of the collectathon I mentioned before, where you will more than likely find some of the items along the way, depending on how diligent you are in terms of exploring and checking all those nooks and crannies. Jim starts a little later by helping him expand a house into their club, and he starts by borrowing a pick. But the two are actually linked together. The museum wants artifacts to exhibit, and you find objects that you can give to the museum curator, and she will put them on display. Some of the things she calls some of these items are a bit questionable, but that's not Mega Man's problem. Some of these objects are not found in the ruins either. One is earned by playing a messed up mini game in the guise of a TV show where you kick balls at a mechanical dog. There are two other games. One is just popping balloons. The other involves jet skates you can build. Basically, Mega Man can hover around the game. Just watch out for cars. The game's kind of an obstacle course where you have to go through some cones and you hit yellow cones to stop time and try to beat the time for each rank. It's really easy if you use the L1 and R1 buttons to make sharp turns and press forward to speed up. Now for Jim, after getting the pick and later a saw, they expand the building where there is a pile of junk in it. You can search it all you want, but you never get anything from it, even when Jim says you can take anything, except when you bring him 3 items: a comic book and 2 beetles. The comic book gets you the X-Buster, a part needed for the shiny laser, and one of the beetles gets you a heater. You then give it to the curator, who calls it a cooking pot, and is the last item needed for the museum, depending on if you found them all. A girl will then appear and give Mega Man a crystal figure in the shape of a woman. At this point, if you did all the exploring and did not miss the weapon plans, you can make the shining laser the best weapon in the game. It takes a bit of zenny to fully upgrade the shining laser. About 860,000 zenny. I said this before, but you don't earn the zenny you need through the progression of the game, and you have to farm the rest. There were a few spots where I did that, and I did not mention that, but here it takes a few hours to get what you need. It more or less feels like a lazy way to pad out the game, because it would be really short otherwise. That brings me to the Sub-City Gate in the downtown area. There is one other gate I can go to, but it's a nothing burger. The importance of this gate is I could get around 20,000 zenny per trip from the Reavers. I spent a lot of time getting the zenny needed from this particular gate. After Mega Man thought he killed the Bonds in the last encounter, they make an appearance and you fight them one last time in their mech Bruno. But I have the shiny laser and I just melt it in a second or two. The last thing I did before beating the game was to fully upgrade the canteen to the max amount of charges. There are a total of 99 charges. The first 20 cost nothing, but every charge after costs 20,000 zenny. That is 1,580,000 zenny. It took me about 6 to 8 hours to get to the point before the shining laser. And by the time I was done earning all the zenny I needed to max out the charges in the canteen and the shiny laser, I was sitting around 14 hours. And there's still other special weapons I can upgrade. There's another one that would take around 1,500,000 to actually upgrade completely. And I just ignored that special weapon altogether. Now, there's one little bit I didn't mention, and that's a hidden morality system. I did mention there were consequences for some of your actions, like kicking the can behind the bakery counter, or kicking vending machines, as another thing you could do. You also have good deeds like rebuilding the city or paying for the new medical equipment for the hospital. If you do enough bad things, Mega Man will turn black and dark blue. One way to do this instantly is to take the money from a mistaken bank robbery. Unfortunately, outside of Mega Man's color changing, it does not affect how people view him. Okay, back to the main gate. After you get the 3 keys from the sub-city, you go to the bottom of the main gate and you encounter Mega Man Juno, who is a administrative unit and tells Mega Man he is a trigger unit and that he is responsible for culling the island's population after it gets to a point and starts the process to eradicate them via a weapon from space. Juno, seeing that Mega Man's memory has been wiped, traps him for factory reset, and the Bonds come in after he's gone and rescues him. He then goes off to fight Juno in order to stop the machine from wiping out the island's population. This is the hardest fight in the game. Juno is very fast and hits hard. On top of that, there are 2 stages to the fight, with the second being even harder. Luckily, I brought the shining laser with me and it destroys him in seconds. Otherwise, you would have a harder time. Can I just mention at this point, I kind of wish that they went with his proper name of Rock and just used Mega Man as a title, kind of like what it is. I'm surprised they didn't actually make that plunge because of some of the dialogue in this game. Like, people are naming their baby Mega Man instead of like Rock in the game. I had that scripted earlier, but I must have erased the paragraph. But I'm inserting it here because you have Mega Man Juno and then you have just Mega Man. And they don't call Mega Man Trigger, it's just Mega Man. With the fight over, Mega Man failed to stop Juno in time, but Data, the robot monkey, steps in and stops the weapon from firing and erases Juno's backup sent to Mother. I have no idea who Mother is. I don't remember from the second game at all. This whole thing just raises more questions about the island and what happened in the past. After that, Mega Man says goodbye to everyone on the island and he flies off in the flutter with Roll, Gramps, and Data. Overall, the game was entertaining but extremely flawed. It feels more like a proof of concept even though it was released as a full game. It is way too easy, offering very little challenge. Not necessarily a bad thing, but not a good thing either. It is more like Baby's first action adventure game. The dialogue is serviceable, but there are odd breaks in the delivery of the lines. I think this may be due to hardware limitations, but it could also be a design choice as well.
Hold it right there! You can't go in there! This area's closed off!
Please, officer, let us through. Our grandfather's in there and...
You can't go in either. It's dangerous.
The story is okay with the mystery of what happened to the island in the past and the legendary treasure that is underneath it, and the Bonds being a bit of a red herring, and they leave you with more questions than answers in what feels like an attempt at sequel baiting. The auto-targeting is too controlling, forcing you to target whatever it feels like, with only a little bit of free aiming. I was at least entertained by the game, but I can see why it did not do well. It is worth playing at least once for the experience, but it will be years before I touch it again. We'll see if the sequel has made improvements. I mean, I know it has. Anyways, if you made it this far, thanks for watching.